Hi everyone, I'm Kristy Bushaw and I sell the beautiful Alabama and Florida Gulf Coast. And today I want to have an honest discussion with you about some of the biggest buying mistakes I see people make all along the coast when they are purchasing. And this video is not meant to scare anybody. You know, it's just living along the Gulf Coast is incredible. But buying here is different than buying in lots of other areas. And there are different things buyers wish they understood before they purchased. So today I'm going to walk through some of the most common mistakes I see over and over again so you can avoid them and make a smarter decision if you're thinking of buying in Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Perdido Key, or anywhere along the Gulf Coast. And the first one is probably one of the most common things I see: buying too far from the lifestyle you actually want to live. People come down, spend a weekend here, fall in love with a property, and don't always think through what their day-to-day life is actually like and what it looks like once they actually own here. For example, if you love boating, you may not want to be 25 minutes from every single marina for the weekend. If you love walking places, you probably don't want to buy somewhere where you have to drive everywhere. If you want peace and quiet, you may not want to be right in the middle of highly active tourism places. And on the flip side, if you want energy and activity, you may not love being in a super secluded area. I always tell buyers, don't just buy the house, buy the lifestyle around it, because where you purchase along the Gulf Coast completely changes your experience living here. And this next one is a huge one along the Gulf Coast. Not fully understanding flood insurance and wind insurance. This is probably one of the biggest surprises for the out-of-state buyers I have. Insurance along the coast is different, and I have a video on my YouTube channel that discusses this. Please go to my YouTube channel to learn more. There's a lot more to evaluating the insurance than people understand or expect. And one of the biggest mistakes that my buyers tend to make is falling in love with the purchase price without fully understanding all the monthly fees and ownership costs associated with owning the property. Because sometimes two homes at the exact same price can have very different insurance costs depending upon age of the home, elevation, updates, roof, windows, location, and whether the property is Gold Fortified or not. So that's why it's so important to start insurance conversation early in your buying process instead of waiting until the last minute to understand insurance. Now let's talk about something that can really impact your monthly expenses long term. You know, things like HOA fees and condominium ownership. The costs are just different, and this is a huge one with owning along the coast. A lot of buyers see beautiful condominiums and focus mainly on the purchase price, but monthly association fees here can be drastically dependent upon amenities, you know, the insurance cost, the reserves, the staffing, the age of the building, the deferred maintenance and future projects. And sometimes buyers don't realize how much it actually includes in those dues. Things like insurance, you know, the pools, the elevators, the security, the cable, the internet, the water, the exterior maintenance, and the amenities, the reserves, and a healthy HOA is usually good at all these things. What matters is understanding what you're paying for and whether the building is financially healthy long term. And speaking of condos, this next part is especially important if you're deciding between a condominium or a house, because these are completely different lifestyles. Condos can offer easier maintenance, amenities, beach access, rental potential, lock and leave convenience, but they also come with HOA restrictions, shared spaces, assessments, parking limitations, elevator dependence, and less privacy, whereas homes often offer, as you know, more flexibility, more storage, boating options, garages, yards, privacy, and more control overall. Neither is better. It really comes down to the lifestyle you want. And honestly, that's one of the biggest conversations buyers should be having before they begin the purchasing process. Now, this one matters a lot more than people think. Choosing rental income over personal lifestyle. And this is such a common Gulf Coast mistake. People start looking at numbers online and suddenly become hyper-focused on maximizing rental income without stopping to ask, do I actually want to spend time here myself? Because some of the highest rental producing areas may not necessarily match with the lifestyle you personally want here for long term. And honestly, for a lot of buyers, the happiest owners are the ones who find a balance between investment potential and genuinely loving what they've purchased. Because eventually, most people want to enjoy the property too. Something else that surprises a lot of buyers, not understanding things like boating access. And this is huge one, specifically in the Orange Beach and Perdido Key area. A lot of people assume close to water actually means like easy boating, and that's just not always the case. Things like bridge clearance and idle zones and canal depth, the trailer parking, marine access, and lift restrictions and proximity to open water can completely change your boating experience. So if boating is important to you, those are conversations you absolutely want to have before purchasing. And this is something people usually don't realize until after they purchase, not considering traffic and seasonality. And honestly, this is less about avoiding areas and more about understanding how the coast functions throughout the year. You know, summer feels very different from fall. Holiday weekends feel different from normal weekdays. Different areas experience different traffic patterns. And sometimes buyers purchase without realizing how much their experience changes depending on the season. That's why I always encourage my buyers to think about, how will I actually use the property throughout the entire year, not just for a short duration of a weekend getaway. And finally, one of the biggest mistakes I see buyers make in today's world is not understanding future development around the property, what is happening. And this matters a lot along the Gulf Coast because these areas continue growing very quickly. Things like traffic, views, property value, noise, lifestyle, and long-term appreciation. And sometimes future development is great for value. And sometimes buyers prefer quieter areas with less future density The important thing is simply understanding what's planned around you before you buy. And honestly, that's one of the biggest reasons having a truly local agent really matters, because buying along the Gulf Coast is not just about finding the pretty property online. It's understanding the lifestyle, the ownership costs, the neighborhoods, the future growth, the insurance realities, and how all of it fits in together for long-term owning. So, when buyers understand all of these things up front, they usually end up much happier. So if you've been thinking about buying in the Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Perdido Key, or anywhere along the Gulf Coast, and you want help understanding the differences, simply go to KristyBushaw.com and we'll make an appointment to meet online or in person. And if there's another Gulf Coast topic you'd like me to cover in any upcoming Wisdom Wednesday, leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below, and I'll see you next Wednesday.